Listen, I need to tell you about something that's been happening in America's national parks for decades. And I'm warning you now, this story is going to make you think twice before going camping, because people are disappearing. Not just a few people. Not just hikers who got lost. I'm talking about over 1,600 documented cases of people who vanished under circumstances that make absolutely no sense. And here's the scariest part. The government won't even keep a list of who's missing. This is the story of missing 411. And after you hear this, you might never look at the wilderness the same way again. Let me start with one case, because this case changed everything. June 14th, 1969. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Tennessee. A 6-year-old boy named Dennis Martin was on a camping trip with his dad, his grandfather, and his older brother Douglas. It was Father's Day weekend, a family tradition. They were hiking through Spence Field, this beautiful highland meadow along the Appalachian Trail. The weather was perfect. The views were stunning, and Dennis was excited. This was his first big overnight camping trip. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, Dennis and his brother were playing with 2 other kids they'd met on the trail. The boys decided to pull a prank on the adults. They were going to hide behind some bushes and jump out to scare their dads. So the boys split up. 3 went one direction. Dennis, wearing a bright red t-shirt, went another direction. He hid behind a bush, and he was never seen again. Dennis's dad waited for him to jump out, but he didn't. The other boys came out laughing. But Dennis wasn't with them. They called his name. Nothing. They searched the immediate area. Nothing. By 8:30 that night, Dennis's grandfather had hiked 9 miles down the mountain to the nearest ranger station to report him missing, and that's when one of the largest search operations in American history began. Okay, so imagine this. By the next morning, there were 30 rangers searching for Dennis. By noon, that number had grown to 240 people. College students, firefighters, Boy Scouts, police officers, volunteers from all over Tennessee, and then the military showed up. 60 Green Berets from Fort Bragg, helicopters, search, planes, bloodhounds, the National Guard. By June 20th, Dennis's 7th birthday, there were 800 people searching for him. 800 people. They searched 56 square miles of wilderness. Every trail, every ravine, every cave, every creek bed. And you know what they found? Nothing. Well, not nothing. They found 1 sock and 1 shoe, but no Dennis. No body, no clothing, no tracks, no scent for the dogs to follow. It's like he just vanished into thin air. The search continued for 16 days. It cost $50,000, and that's in 1969 money. Adjust that for inflation, and you're looking at over $300,000 today. On June 29th, they suspended the search. On September 14th, they officially closed it. To this day, 56 years later, Dennis Martin has never been found. In his case, it's just one of over 1,600 similar disappearances. So this is where things get really interesting. Fast forward to 2011. There's this former police detective named David Paulides. He's doing research in a national park, he won't say which one, and an off-duty park ranger approaches him. The ranger knows Paulides has an investigative background, and he tells him something disturbing. He says, "There's something weird going on with the missing person cases in these parks, and nobody's talking about it." So Paulides starts digging. He files Freedom of Information Act requests. He interviews park rangers. He talks to families of the missing. He reviews thousands of search and rescue reports, and he starts noticing a pattern, a very specific, very disturbing pattern. He calls it Missing 411. Now, Paulides has documented over 1,400 cases that fit what he calls profile points. These are similarities between the cases, things that shouldn't be coincidences but keep happening over and over again. And when you hear these profile points, your blood's gonna run cold. First, the victims often go missing near a water, creeks, rivers, lakes, streams. Second, bad weather happens almost immediately. After someone disappears, rain, snow, fog, it's like nature itself is covering up the evidence. Third, search dogs can't track the scent. Trained bloodhounds that can track a person miles away can't pick up anything. It's like the person just stopped existing. Fourth, victims are often found in areas that have already been searched, sometimes multiple times, sometimes by professional search teams. And here's the really creepy one. Fifth, when bodies are found, the clothing is often missing. Shoes gone, jackets gone, sometimes found completely naked in freezing temperatures. And this is the one that made me believe something truly strange is happening. Sixth, young children are found miles away from where they disappeared. And I'm talking about toddlers, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds found 10, 15, 20 miles away, in terrain that even adult experienced hikers would struggle to cross. How does a 2-year-old walk 20 miles through a mountain range? They don't. That's the thing. They can't. So what's carrying them? Paulides identified what he calls cluster zones. These are specific areas where disappearances happen way more often than they should. Yosemite National Park in California, major cluster zone. The Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, cluster zone. Mount Rainier in Washington, cluster zone. Crater Lake in Oregon, cluster zone. The Boulder Field area in Rocky Mountain National Park, cluster zone. And here's what's crazy. When you map out all the disappearances, they don't just happen randomly across the parks. They happen in very specific locations. Sometimes multiple people disappear from the exact same spot, years apart, decades apart, different ages, different experience levels, different times of year, but the same location. One case that really gets to me is from Crater Lake. In 1998, a guy named Charles McCullough, an experienced hiker, ex-military. He knew the area well, went for a hike and never came back. They found his campsite, food still on the table, tent still set up, backpack still there, but Charles, gone. And in 2006, 8 years later, a man named Joseph Wood vanished in the exact same area, same circumstances. Experienced hiker, campsite found, no body. 2011, another hiker, same area, vanished. What's in that area? Nobody knows. Okay, let me tell you about some cases that just don't make sense at all. There's a case from Idaho, 2015. A 2-year-old boy named Dior Kunz Jr. vanishes from a campsite. His parents, his great-grandfather, and a family friend were all there. They go to a nearby store for supplies. They come back 10 minutes later. Dior is gone. They search everywhere. Bring in dogs, helicopters, dive teams search the nearby reservoir. Nothing. No tracks. No scent. No clothing. It's like he was erased from existence. Here's another one that'll mess with your head. 1957. A 10-year-old boy named Bobby Bishop was at a summer camp in Colorado. He was on a fishing trip with his counselor and other kids. Bobby walked about 50 feet ahead on the trail. When the counselor rounded the corner 30 seconds later, Bobby was gone. They found his fishing rod on the ground. But no Bobby. 5 days later, they found his body. Want to know where? In an area they had already searched 4 times. 4 times. And the medical examiner said he had only been dead for about 2 days, which means he was alive somewhere for 3 days while hundreds of people were looking for him. Where was he? And here's the really disturbing part. His body was laying face up in an open area. No signs of injury. No signs of a struggle. No animal bites. No nothing. He just died. The cause of death? Exposure. But he was found in July in Colorado. It wasn't even cold. Let me talk about the search dogs for a second, because this is where things get truly bizarre. Search and rescue dogs are incredible. They can track a human scent for miles. Through water, through rough terrain, in any weather. But in these missing 411 cases, the dogs act weird. There are reports of dogs reaching a certain point on the trail and just stopping, refusing to go further, whimpering, backing away. Some dogs have been so Spooked, they refused to work for days afterward. In the Dennis Martin case, they brought in some of the best tracking dogs in the country, dogs that had never failed to find a scent before. They couldn't pick up anything. It's like Dennis's scent just ended at that bush. Like he didn't walk away, like he was lifted up and carried off. And this happens constantly in these cases. Person disappears. Dogs brought in immediately. Dogs can't find a scent. How? How does a 6-year-old boy, sweating in the summer heat, wearing a bright red t-shirt, leave 0 scent for a dog to follow? Unless he wasn't walking. Okay, here's the part that made this whole thing blow up into a conspiracy theory. David Paulides discovered something shocking. During his research, the National Park Service does not keep a list of missing persons. Read that again. The National Park Service, the organization responsible for millions of acres of federal land that millions of people visit every year, does not maintain a database of people who go missing in their parks. They don't track it. They don't compile statistics. They don't have a central list. Why? Paulides asked that question directly to Ken Salazar, who was the Secretary of the Interior at the time, the guy who oversaw the National Park Service. In a recorded interview, Paulides asked, "How many people have gone missing from national parks?" Salazar's response, "I don't recall." He doesn't recall. The guy in charge of America's national parks doesn't know how many people have vanished in them. So Paulides filed a Freedom of Information Act request. He wanted the list of missing persons from just one park. Just one. You know what the Park Service told him? They said creating such a list would be too difficult and too expensive. They said it would require them to go through decades of old paper files. Wait. So they do have records. They just won't compile them into a list? Why? A petition was created asking the Department of the Interior to be held accountable for missing persons in national parks. It has over 7,000 signatures. Nothing has changed. The Park Service still doesn't keep a list, and that silence, that refusal to even acknowledge the pattern, that's what makes people think there's a cover-up. So what's really happening? Nobody knows for sure, but there are theories, lots of theories. Theory 1, people are just getting lost. Okay, sure, some of them probably are, but that doesn't explain the missing clothing, the impossible distances, the dogs losing the scent, the bodies showing up in already searched areas. Theory 2, wild animals, bears, mountain lions, wolves. But here's the problem. Animal attacks leave evidence, blood, torn clothing, drag marks, and the bodies are usually found near the attack site. These cases, no evidence of animal attacks. Theory 3, foul play, serial killers, human trafficking, kidnapping. But how do you kidnap someone in the middle of a crowded national park with hundreds of witnesses nearby? And why no ransom demands? Why no bodies dumped later? Theory 4, weather and exposure. People die from hypothermia. They fall off cliffs. They drown in rivers. But again, that doesn't explain the pattern. It doesn't explain children found 20 miles away. It doesn't explain the missing clothes. And then, there are the really out there theories. Bigfoot, cryptids, interdimensional portals, underground cave systems connected to the disappearances, aliens, government experiments. I'm not saying I believe those theories, but I am saying something is happening that we don't understand. David Paulides himself won't commit to a theory. He just presents the facts and says, "You decide." But here's what I think. I think there are things in America's wilderness that we don't fully comprehend. Maybe it's natural, maybe it's not, but whatever it is, it's been happening for a very long time, and it's still happening today. This isn't ancient history. People are still disappearing. 2019, a woman named Heidi Broussard vanishes during a hike in Yosemite. Her car is found. Her dog is found. She's never seen again. 2021, a man hiking alone in Rocky Mountain National Park sends a text to his wife saying he's heading back to the car. He never arrives. Search teams find nothing. 2023, a college student on a camping trip in Olympic National Park goes to use the bathroom. 20 feet from camp. Never comes back. These cases are ongoing. Right now, as you're listening to this, and the pattern continues. Look, I'm not saying don't go to national parks. They're beautiful. They're important. Millions of people visit them every year and come home safely. But if you do go, be smart about it. Never hike alone, ever. Even if you're experienced, tell someone your exact route. Not just, I'm going to Yosemite. Tell them the specific trail, when you're leaving, when you expect to be back. Carry a GPS beacon. Not your phone. Phones die, lose signal. Get a real satellite GPS beacon that can send an SOS signal from anywhere. Stay on marked trails. I know it's tempting to explore. Don't. That's how people disappear. If you feel like something's wrong, if you get that gut feeling that you're being watched, that something's off, trust it. Turn around, go back, and if you're with kids, keep them in sight at all times. No exceptions. Dennis Martin was just 50 feet from his dad when he disappeared. 50 feet. So that's missing 411. Over 1,600 people. Vanished under circumstances that don't make sense. In places where they should have been found. And the scariest part? We still don't know why. Maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe it's the wilderness being unpredictable and dangerous. Or maybe there's something out there that we haven't figured out yet. Something that's been taking people for decades, and it's still out there, right now, waiting. So the next time you go camping, the next time you hear a strange noise in the woods, the next time you feel like you're being watched, remember Dennis Martin. Remember those 1,600 people who walked into the wilderness and never walked back out. Thanks for listening. If you want more true horror stories like this, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment telling me what you think is happening. Do you believe the missing 411 pattern is real? Or is it just coincidence? I read every comment. And hey, if you're going camping this weekend, stay safe out there.